Power on.
Earth, 2019. Dominant species, human. Galactic potential rating, 0. Cultural affiliation, combination of government and global businesses, corporatism, legacy institution. Species still conservative, superstitious, and religious. Ecologically illiterate, largely unaware of cosmological foundation of love. Level of technological dependence is disturbingly higher than the galactic standard. Species distracted and behavior controlled by technology companies. System error. Advanced concepts detected beyond normal human levels. New galactic potential rating, over 9,000. Transmission type, podcast. Host, the man of tomorrow. Brian Sovryn. Source, Sovryn Tech.
Stallion, where have you been? I know that's what everybody's saying, but don't worry. I'm right here, baby, because Sovryn Tech isn't going anywhere. But, crazy times, crazy days, what can I say? In fact, boy, if you really want to see me, if you really want to hear me, not that I'm doing Sovryn Tech there, I might actually bring the old H1. I might bring the little microphone and maybe get a little interviews here and there with some of the people at it. But I got to tell you that I will be in Boston on Thursday, October 3rd. What is it? The Cybersecurity Unlocked 2019 event. I am so fucking excited for this. I am going to be there. I'm not like speaking at it or anything like that, but I'm going to be there. Leo Laporte's going to be there. Steve Gibson, my hero, is going to be there. You better believe I'm going to jump on that and I'm going to be there. But it is not time for that right now. That is coming October 3rd. Link is in the show notes right under the Foreplay if you want to check it out and you want to be there. I know some of you have already said that you will be. I look forward to seeing you there. You'll just find me around and you're just going to find some big bald guy in triple black, and there's Savzu, because it is I, the Golden Stallion, the man of tomorrow, Savzu, the rated R radio star, ready to get into this week's show. And, well, you're going to end up with a double header. So because of the way that I had to record this, you're going to have like back-to-back episodes of Sovryn Tech. But don't worry, you're getting all the Sovryn Tech you can handle, baby. And we have a lot to talk about this week. And, actually, some stories that I kind of can't believe. And also a lot of things that point at where, we talk about this all the time on Sovryn Tech, and look, this is one of the longest running tech shows in the world, just straight up. I don't know if we're going to go as long as the Computer Chronicles did, but for fuck's sake, I'll try. But something we've brought up many times over the years is how do not react to the news cycle, okay? Do not react to the 24/7 news cycle. When you see something, when you catch a headline, make sure you read the story, make sure you go beyond the tweet, right? And for fuck's sake, breathe, okay? Take a minute, think on it, chew on it, breathe, and then act. All right, we talk about that all the time, and we got a story later on, when we start talking some blockchain later on, where this is so true. It's so unbelievably nuts where this industry has gotten to. And I don't just mean the tech world, I mean the journalism as well. And really, I think kind of points at the importance of having independent, we all know the importance of independent voices, but of really independent voices that don't have any real skin in the game with a lot of this stuff, because holy fuck, you can't trust anybody. You can't even trust Forbes. Not that I would have trusted them anyway, but you get my point. They're considered one of the high and mighty institutions in journalism. Oh, no. You just wait till we talk about it later on. But we've got so much more to get into with this. But before we get into that, something I was doing just to get ready. I like to warm up for a show, you know. And one of the ways I like to do that is, well, I mean, let's just call it, I like to get my freak on, baby. And well, you know, when I want to get my freak on, when I want to get hard and ready, and you know what I'm talking about, getting right in the bed, I take some Blue Chew. Of course, that's Blue Chew, B-L-U-E, chew, as in a chewable, because it is a chewable. In fact, it's the first chewable. It has the same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, but it's blue instead of, you know, the other colors. That's why it's called Blue Chew. But this isn't just about performing again. This is about enhancing your performance in bed when you want to get, you know, how far do you think you can go? Can you go all night long like the Golden Stallion could, even without Blue Chew? Well, let me tell you what it's like when I am taking Blue Chew, baby. I mean, I am ready to go. And if you want to be ready to go, you want to please that lady friend or that guy friend, hell, maybe you swing that way, you go for it. I don't care. Or hell, if it's Z's, do it. Do it, baby. Blue Chew is here for all of you. I want you to go to bluechew.com. That's B-L-U-E chew.com. Okay, and this is very important. Very, very important. Use the code TECH, T-E-C-H. Use that code and you will get your first order of Blue Chew free. There's no doctor visits, none of that. Everything gets done online. Okay, everything's discreet. It's great. You go to bluechew.com, use that code TECH when you check out, all right, and you will get your first order for free. You only have to pay $5 for shipping. You want to do this, okay? You got it. I mean, here's the thing. We were just talking about the importance of independent voices. These advertisers, okay, these sponsors of this show, they really do. I mean, they allow in many ways for these independent voices like myself to be out there. Okay, so frequent them. All right, I wouldn't schlep anything on you that I thought was BS. So I don't have to do that, okay, because I am an independent voice. So check it out, bluechew.com. Use that code TECH. I'm telling you, even if you just want to enhance that performance, baby, if you just want to go, I don't know, that greater of a distance and have it hard all that time, baby, Blue Chew. Check it out. Anyway, we are in the Foreplay, which generally you take Blue Chew probably just during the Foreplay, getting started. The Foreplay on Sovryn Tech, of course, is where we talk about all the little stories that are happening in the tech and science world. And, you know, we have a shit ton of releases really to discuss here. And these releases, I mean, some are interesting, some are weird. Let's start off with the kind of weird. In fact, I brought this up on a Zomia 1 Underground Q&A recently. Someone had asked me about this phone, the Librem 5 from Purism, who previously had done laptops that I had been both at times favorable and critical of. But the Librem 5 is a Linux, a phone running Linux. And we did we talk about the Librem services? Like there's the Librem apps. It's an entire suite of apps that you can use that has chat, all kinds of different services that you're used to. And the idea is to give you, free and open source. I mean, they're not free as in, not free in cost. They're free as in freedom, not as in beer, right? Because I think you pay like $7 a month. There was some monthly price, some subscription fee that you pay for it, which whatever. But you pay for those, and it is meant to be a replacement for you using, say, Google's services, or go down the list of anybody from the Sinister Six. And I mean, I'm very supportive of it, and Purism, at the very least, say what you will about them, and there are, again, there's positives and negatives, okay, but they have released product. I mean, they have put, stuff out there. There are things that you can use. You can buy their laptops, etc. So I'll give them that, because, I mean, they did start off as kind of a crowdfunding thing, and we've talked, in fact, I think it was the last episode, we talked about the dangers of crowdfunding. Well, the Librem 5, which was announced, I want to say a couple of years ago, something like that, is finally going to come out. Sort of. Okay. Here's the rub. So on September 24th, if you're an original backer of the Librem 5, and now I think you can also, everybody else can go and pre-order one, you can get, on September 24th, 2019, you can get a Librem 5. However, it is a very rough around the edges product. It's, I don't know, there's some issues with not issues, I mean, apparently it can function, you just really got to know your shit to really get it to function. There's some issues with the antenna. There's the case is loose. I mean, there's a few different things that I read. And what they're saying is that if you want to hold off until 2020, until next year, that then you'll get a much nicer product. But over the next few months, they will be releasing different iterations of the Librem 5. This is the weirdest, like the next one that'll come out like in November. Again, you can get one in September right now. But then the next, or not right now, but coming up in September. The next one that's coming out in November, I guess the case won't be as loose and the antennas will work better, or the software will, I don't know, you don't have to use command line or something. It's very, very weird. Okay. Now you got to understand, I am so supportive of alternatives to the, what's the word I want to use here? The two-party system that we have in the mobile space, right? It's basically everything's iOS and Android. I want things to exist outside of that. I want the outside of that to take over. Okay, I mean, and there's other interesting projects. Like, understand, I mean, Librem 5 is just fortunately doing, I mean, even the one that's the Librem, the phone itself that's coming out in September, there was something where like the kill switches might not exactly work, and I'm just like, well, then why are you putting this out there? Like, just to prove that you got the product? I don't mean to be critical of them, because I think they're doing great work. It's just, this is why there aren't things out of Android and iOS, right? Is because, I mean, it seems like nobody can really deliver. But what's the other ones out there? I know there's Graphene OS. I don't know what the fuck happened to Copperhead OS. Okay, that was running on Pixels. They were eventually like selling phones, but I don't even think that they're part of it anymore. The Calyx Institute, which they're a non-profit, they are developing Calyx OS. And I know that can run Android apps. I mean, that's an interesting route to go. I mean, you got to understand that. So like the operating system, the alternative operating system that really was, full on FOSS, right? Is Replicant. Okay. And I'm not even sure if Replicant's still getting developed. I suppose I could look. But last I knew, Replicant would work well on Nexus devices, which, I mean, we're in the Pixel era now, but it worked well on Nexus devices. Here's the rub. Like, Wi-Fi wouldn't work because Wi-Fi is not an open standard. So you had to buy a separate adapter that would connect to the USB port at the bottom that was kind of reverse engineered to have open source Wi-Fi drivers, because those basically don't exist. I mean, it's such a pain in the ass to have, and look, because I've been pushing for people to get on these kinds of products like the Librem 5. Again, this show's been going 7-8 years. And at least 6 of those, I've been pushing for people to get on board with this stuff. And the general rallying cry, not from all of you, but from many, and I'm not insulting anyone, I'm just saying, is, and I've heard this when I've even recently when I have spoken at events or over the years, I always hear it's too hard. That's what I get. It's too hard. It's too complicated. I just want it to fucking work. So, I've adjusted my message in many ways accordingly. Okay? I mean, even when, and it's sad, like, it's really sad because, like, Cyanogen, okay, or back when it's Lineage OS now, but back when it was Cyanogen Inc., and when it was still Cyanogen Mod, they tried. Remember, they came out with the installer you could download from the Play Store that would automate the process of installing Cyanogen Mod on your phone as long as it was a compatible phone, and then that would get rid of Android and you could put on a custom ROM. Do you remember those? I mean, Google put the kibosh on that so fast. I mean, they slammed that door. You guarantee 20 asses got hit on the way out. You understand? So I mean, and I get it. Like, even now, is as easy as it's gotten with, as long as you have the right phone, like with, to install Lineage OS and all that, a lot of people just aren't going to do that. Okay, they're just not. And, do I want to be here for the people that really do want to jump on board with privacy and all? Absolutely. Okay, I'm here for all of you. But I totally recognize that the average person is just going to be hunky goddamn dory with iOS when they shouldn't be. And we're going to cover a story later that's all about that there has been a major security exploit for years with iOS that, Apple didn't know about, and Google had to fucking tell them about it. Wait till we get to that. We'll get to that during HackSec. It's tough. I mean, for a lot of people, it's very, very complicated. And even when you have a company like Purism, this is not a strong showing for them to say, okay, yeah, you can get the Librem 5 now, but it's kind of rough. This is going to be tough. Or like Copperhead OS, they're concentrating on the Pixel phones. They shouldn't have been concentrating on trying to sell $1,000 phones. You're not going to get anywhere with that. You should have made a fucking deal with Nokia, okay, or with HMD Global, or make a deal with Huawei, for fuck's sake. They're looking for a new operating system. One of these organizations should be reaching out to them. Of course, you can't really do it with Huawei. I kind of understand because, I mean, that's part of, or that is the claims, again, big quotes on that. Claims against Huawei is that they're working with, the Chinese government. And of course, the Chinese government wouldn't want you to have a hardened OS on their, on your device or anything like that. But there's somebody out there, maybe Essential, I don't know, pick one of these companies who's actually putting shit out there and, already has phones, already has a production process and everything. And how about OnePlus? And put, and have Copperhead OS, or, even though, like I said, I don't know what the hell happened there, but have Graphene or Calyx OS or whatever, or even Lineage OS, and get that on there. And it doesn't happen. Why? Because it's hard to do new hardware. It's expensive. It's a pain in the ass. Okay, no doubts about that. And clearly Purism is going through that. Again, I empathize with them. I get it. What's going on there? But here's the rub. If you're not willing to go through that process, through the entire process of manufacturing a modern smartphone, money gets made off of selling metadata somehow. There's no real financial incentive to sell a hardened a smartphone that has a hardened operating system. If anything, you're probably going to ended up treated like Huawei by whatever governments around the world. And it'll be, it'll be for slightly different reasons, but the same outcome. I hate it. It sucks. We got to move on to something else. But I would dare argue, like, just fucking get away from this. Well, as I've been saying many times, I mean, I think the real answer is for someone to come up with a communication privacy solution that is an alternative form factor. I mean, we talked about the smartwatch recently and all this. That's just something that blew everybody's mind, where it's something either, I mean, it doesn't have to be totally new, but where it's new enough where they're like, oh, no, I want that. I mean, you just have to get people away from the smartphone, because no matter which way the smartphone functions, it is ultimately anti-privacy, just out of the fucking gate by the baseband firmware itself. And there is no smartphone that's going to resolve that. It just isn't. So, I mean, I appreciate what Purism is doing here with the Librem 5. I support it. I think it's beautiful. It's wonderful. I'm happy to talk about it when I get a completed product that does everything, because it's very clear that what's coming out on September 24th is not what they planned on being their finished product. If there's a finished product, if I get my hands on it and it's everything that the world, or, that I've always wanted, boy, baby, I will sing it from the fucking mountaintops, and I will be there. I have been, you have to understand, I have been espousing CyanogenMod, Lineage OS, and so on for years, and saying, everybody get on that. Everybody get on that. I was not espousing using Google's Android. I wasn't a part of that gig. I was not saying buy iOS. I was saying, no, this is the only thing you're going to do. Nobody did it. And even those that tried, they came back to me and said, it's too hard. What do you want me to do? And again, when I'm not making fun, I'm not insulting anyone, I'm not mad at anyone, I'm just telling the reality. The only thing I'm mad at is that we're in this situation. In fact, I'm not, this isn't going to be the lead thing, but it's again, you're getting a double header here. Okay, I want to have a conversation around the Twitter trending box. And you're going to say, what could that possibly have to do with much of anything, especially in relations to this? It does. Okay, believe me, it really fucking does. But I am dealing with right now. Okay, I am going to, here we go. We're going to do a little Agent Smith here. Take off my glasses. You hear that, Morpheus? I'm going to be honest with you. The Golden Stallion is going to be honest with you. I was born in 1981. I'm 38 years old. Now, I have not been around as long as, some guys who have been into science fiction. I've been into science fiction my whole life. Okay? Really, I can, very, very little guy I can remember. I remember watching Star Trek the Motion Picture at 5. I remember, I've told that story many times. I remember it so well. I've always been into this stuff. I have been not brainwashed, okay, but I have been led to believe, and I have been, it has been strongly suggested in my mind over decades of watching science fiction. And I know that this is true for people who are twice my age, or, a couple decades older maybe. We were sold on this idea that technology will solve everything. Okay, technology, we just need a little more. And we talked about this, that this is kind of the philosophy of Silicon Valley today, is that they think more communication and more knowledge can only be a good thing. Okay, the problem is that more knowledge part includes your metadata and everything about you and what you're doing, in a complete lack of privacy. Carrying on. Okay, I was hopeful. Yes, we are going to have a Star Trek future. I want that Star Trek future. Okay, and I've said this years ago, and I'm telling it to you again, is that we are not heading towards a Star Trek as in the Federation or Starfleet future. We are heading towards the Borg, you understand. It is very hard for me to get excited. I don't want to get on this show every week and be complaining about shit. I'm going to complain this whole fucking episode about stuff, more or less. I don't want to do that. Are there good things happening out there? Yeah, there's some. Okay, and when I can talk about them, I do. But we are not heading in the right direction with tech. And this whole idea that, we just got to get more technologically advanced and that'll solve everything and just keep going and keep going. We're not heading in that direction. Actually, I was listening, I mentioned Steve Gibson earlier. And look, I have advertisers. I know how it goes. But with podcasting, you can do advertising to some degree, with some honesty, and you can make calls on who gets to advertise and who doesn't. Okay, which isn't always true with shows like on TV and in other places. Okay, or you have, if you're part of a giant podcasting network, there are ads you have to run, and the host may think they're deplorable and has no control over that. I get it. And when I heard it, it was just putting words, thoughts into words. It was on a recent episode of Security Now where Steve Gibson and Leo Laporte were talking. And basically they were talking about, in fact, we're going to get into this when we talk about Firefox 69, which just came out. They were having a back and forth about, anti-tracking technology in browsers and the advertising industry. And the conclusion that Steve Gibson eventually came to is that the advertising industry, what they want is diametrically opposed to what the consumer wants as far as privacy and everything else goes. And there's a huge conversation to have around that we don't, I could spend the whole episode talking about it as well. Okay, where basically, all of this really targeted advertising, there is no data to suggest. There's no fucking data to suggest. Because holy hell, if you knew, I don't want to get lost, but if you knew how many fucking entrepreneurs I've had to listen to at blockchain and libertarian conferences and all this stuff who are like, oh no, I'm doing great on Facebook ads. No, you're not. And you don't even know how good you could be doing. And you really, you could be getting, all of your metrics could be pure bullshit. And they don't, they claim they want privacy and they don't care. Anyway, what advertisers want and what the consumer wants are diametrically opposed. They are the exact opposites. You can't, except for in certain ways, kind of like we do with podcasts, okay? And even podcasting is a very imperfect form of, like, does an advertiser, totally know how many people came from a certain podcast? I mean, you can do, there's, link tracking, there's lots of little tricks, or, you can use a code, right, to where they know, okay, and those things are helpful, and I'm not necessarily even saying that they're bad, like a specific URL, stuff like this, okay? But even this is imperfect. It's all scattershot. You just try and see what works, and if you get ROI overall, then something within your ad strategy worked. But that's really to keep in line with what the consumer wants or what the everyday person wants ethically, as in their privacy. That's basically how it can work for a company that decides to run ads of some kind. But that's not what people want. They have been sold on lies from Facebook, Google, and whatever other search engine or platform that you happen to be using, that somehow you are getting some sort of ROI through them, and blah, and you're going to get, if you put X amount of dollars in, you're going to get this out of it and all that. And there's no guarantees of ROI in any of that shit. I mean, there just isn't. Okay. But this is the rub, is that what funds, all of the financial incentives outside of maybe Bitcoin, all of the financial incentives that power the entirety of our interconnected world, the internet and beyond, are diametrically opposed to what at least the lip service that people claim that they want. That they want privacy. They don't want their data to go everywhere. They want some kind of security. Maybe they want anonymity. You fucking can't have both. And that's what a lot of people are starting to realize, including tech journalists, though they don't want to admit it, because then they lose, they're not going to get the gelt shelled out to them anymore. And then they're out of a job. I mean, you people are worried about automation taking things over and making people lose jobs and not have money and all. No, fuck no. Like, you have the ad industry alone, just the ad industry, which is, again, part of the major financial incentive of all communicative technologies, from TV to the internet, radio, go down the list, that is ripping away your humanity and your chance of having any kind of actual freedom in your fucking life. Say nothing of you being out of a job or not having money. How about your fucking dignity? You got any of that left? How many times have you flown on an airplane recently? I'm sure it's been stripped of you by now. Thank you, TSA. And it gets worse, and we'll talk more about that. Actually, we have a story of the week that kind of plays off of this whole theme. But folks, you want me to get on this show and how am I supposed to be excited about what's going on? The best I can do is make concessions with people. Say, all right, well, you don't want you don't want this, you don't want that. Fine. At the very least, let's just try and secure these networks as they exist. So get an Android One phone. Or fine, iOS is more or less secure, even though not really. We'll find out. And this isn't new. It's not like this is a new thing for humans either, because that's another thing. In fact, I might get into it in the next episode. This issue around, the death of the American adult, the end of the concept of the American adult and all this. I read an article about this recently that I thought was just, well, it was interesting. I kind of got it, but to say that somehow social media and smartphones and a lot of this stuff is doing us in. No, you can, fortunately, I mean, I'm not that old, but fortunately I have been around, okay, and I existed in the world, thankfully, and I am, if you had any idea how forever thankful I am for this, I existed at a time before the internet. I grew up before the internet was the force that it became, okay? And I argued the internet didn't become pervasive until 2003. But even if you want to say it was 96 or 97 or something, I was already, I already had my hormones raging and getting my fuck on. Okay, before that became a thing. I'm forever thankful for this. And what I'm getting at with saying that is that I remember a time where the verbiage wasn't, oh, smartphones are killing us. The internet connected world is depressing us. Social media is depressing us, and it's controlling what people think and all this stuff. Folks, people, they were saying the same thing about TV. But you know what the problem is that you'll get a lot of journalists who will say, or you get a lot of commentators or even like CEOs out of tech companies who, when these claims get brought up to them that, hey, we have this research that we've done, and apparently, people are rampantly depressed and they blame Twitter. And then what do these asshats do? They say, well, they said the same thing about radio. They said the same thing about TV. No, yes, they did say the same thing. Yes, but they weren't wrong then either. They were right, and they're still right. So, I say all this just in that, hey, baby, maybe one day we can have these technologies that respect the fuck out of who we are as human beings, okay? But frankly, until the people developing this stuff actually understand what it means to be a human being and actually respect other human beings themselves, which they don't, it ain't happening. Okay? And until we get, we've got a real problem here. Okay? I get it. I know. So many of my listeners, the market will solve everything. Financial incentives are creating very skewed products. Very strange results. And we're talking in areas where, the government has their hands in everything, I understand, but we're talking in areas where, regulation isn't so much a thing, where there's no such thing as a free market, but where it's pretty dang near. And nobody wants what's being schlepped off to them. Nah, never mind. That's enough on that. I've already gone 30 minutes talking about this. But it's, if you wonder about me, like, wow, Stallion's not getting behind the microphone as much as he used to. He's not, what's going on here? This is what's going on. Is that things are going in the absolute wrong fucking direction. There's a couple places where things are going in the right direction. Like I said, Bitcoin, on point. Okay, that's going in the right direction. But then, the news cycle around that isn't any better. Well, I want to save that for later. Okay, so real quick, I had that conversation. Let's see if, maybe people will unsubscribe from me over that because, you're banking. Is this what most of us are doing? Are we just kind of like faking it till I don't mean faking it. I don't mean as anyone's being dishonest, but like you're just using these platforms and this system until you've made your millions or something, and then you'll just disappear. Because that's how I fucking define success, is when I become permanently AFK. Do I never have to touch a smartphone or keyboard again? If I get to that point, I have fucking made it in life. If I don't have to depend on this system, and what system are we talking about? All right, look, I want you to pause that. Don't pause the podcast. Pause that thought until we get to our story of the week, because I want to show you where all of this leads. My Fitbit is fucking awesome. I know how much I'm sleeping or I'm not, because god damn it, there's so many lights and screens going on around me, and there's cars driving, whatever. My laptop, my Echo does this. Just wait. Okay. Let me just round out quickly the foreplay here. Okay. We'll come back to that. Firefox 69. Woo, what a great number, baby. Get your Blue Chew out. Fire socks. Yeah, that's someone's got to come out with that Fire Socks. Or maybe Firefox should have a baseball team. Fire Socks. But Firefox 69, there are some new things here, but Firefox 69, that it just got released. I definitely recommend updating if you haven't, obviously. But basically what they've done with Firefox 69 is they have turned on a lot of security and privacy features that they've been implementing, frankly, over the past 4 years. They finally turned them on by default, okay, to where automatically you are doing, they're doing, what is it, enhanced tracking protection, where they are blocking third-party tracking cookies by default now. You could do this a couple versions ago, I think, but now it's doing it by default. Maybe the major new feature is that they are blocking crypto mining on websites. I think that's by default. I mean, that's a feature I think that already existed where you could kind of turn that on with a flag. But I mean, this isn't. Opera's been doing this for over a year with all of their web browsers, mobile and desktop. Of course, you can have a hearty laugh about Opera if you want, but regardless, Firefox isn't like the first one to do this, and I'm glad they're not claiming to do so. But yeah, I think crypto mining, I think they blocked that a couple of versions ago, like version 67. I think that they did that. But then, I mean, there's some nice little features both of those are really, really important. And again, the ad agencies and advertisers are freaking the fuck out over the fact that Firefox is doing this. Why? Because they know that if a company is pushing for privacy, that it is fucking with their business model. And again, it's hilarious, like we were saying earlier, because there are no metrics to suggest that them collecting all of this data about you ends up in more ROI for them, ends up on greater profits. What do they care? But that's because I think these advertisers, as much data as they're collecting, they're also selling that off to somebody else. I mean, it's what's the old saying? It's turtles all the way down. So kudos to Firefox. Of course, why are they finally doing this? Is it out of the kindness of their hearts? Yeah, let's be honest here. No. I mean, I might as well, let's light all the bridges on fire, right? Because there's only one way home, and that's forward. Because I've reached out to Mozilla to like advertise, and I don't know, whatever, they didn't think that it was worthwhile, even though I'm one of their staunchest supporters, and I've gotten more people to get on Firefox than I can count. And yeah, I know I have. Okay, I have those metrics because people have shown me. They hold up their phone and say, "Stallion, whoo, be proud of me," and I am. Okay, I really am. Anyway, the reason that Firefox is finally implementing this stuff is because, as we talked about a few episodes ago, they are probably planning on. They are planning this, whether when it's going to be implemented, or maybe they'll decide they don't want to implement it, but it's certainly something they are working on. That is Firefox Premium, where you pay a subscription fee, most likely a subscription fee, not a one-time fee, but that's a guess. But you pay a fee of some kind to get, higher end features, and you get varying services out of Firefox, and you get to use a souped up version of the Firefox browser. So they are looking to make some money off of what they're doing. And this allows them to not be reliant upon, where they can act more independently because they're not reliant upon other sources of income, which probably has something to do with some kind of advertiser somewhere. So I think that they feel pretty confident in shutting all of this stuff down because they are expecting on getting an influx of cash from Firefox Premium users. We'll see, how that works out. And when we talked about it, I said, it's not a crazy idea. It's been done before. Because Opera, speaking of Opera again, Opera did this 20 years ago where they charged for the browser. Okay. They charged money for it. But at the time, I don't think people realized that the browser would be the single most important piece of software out there. Okay. After a fashion, Chrome is already doing this, right? Chrome already charges you what form? What are you talking about, Stallion? What do they have a subscription fee? I didn't know about this. Where did this come from? No. Think bigger. Chromebooks are effectively a paid for browser, a super secure environment that has a shit ton of features built into it. That's really what a Chromebook is at the end of the day. You're paying for that privilege. Okay. So, I think that it's a model that's ready now because now most people don't even use a computer without doing something in the browser, right? Or where the browser is it might as well be their operating system, quite frankly, for most people or for a lot of people. So, Firefox could do very well with this, okay? But, anyway, I don't need to keep knocking on them. Another nice feature that they got is that they can you can block autoplay videos that have no sound. write those annoying ass things that show up in the corner of your browser or whatever. I mean, those are just positively ridiculous, but they're there, and now Firefox blocks them. There are some other features in Firefox 69, but I think those were kind of the big ones and the most interesting. Thunderbird 68, that is out as well. Really, I mean, Thunderbird 68, what did they do? I don't know. They made it prettier. Like, now you can color text, and I think they made the menu system a little simpler. They improved dark mode and all that stuff, but I'm just putting it out there. Thunderbird's still a thing. In case you didn't know. Perhaps more interestingly, and something that I have been recommending for quite some time that people could really use, okay, maybe instead of your smartphone, is Tails OS. Tails OS is up to version 3.16 as of a couple days ago. Definitely update to this, because they did put in some nice security features for mitigating Spectre exploit. So that's a pretty important one. Jump on that. And I think they're in beta 2 of Tails 4.0, which I can't wait to see what the hell they have in mind for that. I haven't looked at the beta personally, but I'll definitely be giving a full review and talking about that when they do a major version update for Tails OS, because I mean, that, you know, if there is something to get excited about in this world, Tails OS, in the tech world, Tails OS is one of them. So jump on that. In fact, I love it that it's there's times where I feel like they should do some really clever marketing. I'm guessing they don't have the money to do it because, you know, Tails OS, by its very nature, you know, of trying to anonymize you and give you privacy and security and all that, you know, fucks with the bulk of financial incentives in this world. So maybe they don't really have the money to be able to do some funny marketing. But like, they had, you know, Tails version 3.14 came out recently. I don't know, I would have done something clever with that, but Tails 3.16, I mean, it'd be like Tails 316, and I don't know, I would have done something like Tails 316, I just hid your ass, you know, like, something like that, you know, kind of like a Stone Cold Steve Austin thing. Anyway, it would have been funny, but that's out there as well, and maybe you're going to want to jump on that after we get into our story of the week. Well, here you go. You want something to be happy about, you know? Noiseless mice. I got this little Logitech here. It's the M330. 90% less noise than your average mouse. And here, I mean, can you hear it? I can't even hear it. And all I have are little, you know, in-ear, not even in-ear, but just like these little on-ear headphones. You know, nothing, no serious studio pair of headphones whatsoever. And I'm just click, 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 and it's not even there. How wonderful is that? We live in a world where mice don't have to make sound. I think they should call them church mice. Anyway, don't get too excited, because we have a hell of a story here to get into. Big Orange. No, sorry. Well, yes, this would ultimately have to come, or, you know, have to do with Big Orange, and, you know, who we're talking about when we talk about that. The Big Orange in the Big White House. And this is a story from Gizmodo, which I thought was particularly interesting. And here's the headline quickly. The plan to use Fitbit data to stop mass shootings is one of the scariest proposals yet. Woo! What do we got here? Well, anyway, first off, the tragedies that have been occurring over and over again in recent weeks and months and years are absolutely that, tragedies. I may not comment on those much, but that might come into play later on with this. But I want to read the story. I want you to be aware of this. I want you to know how, you know, the interconnected world, how you having that beautiful Amazon Echo or that Google Home, or how you talking to Siri or Hey Google, you know, and so you don't feel alone. I don't know, you know, where you have all these things, just how it is improving your life. Let's talk about it. Here we go. In the aftermath of yet another mass shooting in America, loved ones grieve. Gun control advocates call for common sense reforms. Yeah, right. And politicians suggest new quote-unquote solutions that won't do anything about guns. These proposals frequently focus on mental health, but a new plan before the White House to monitor, quote, neurobehavioral, end quote, predictors of violence isn't just misguided, it's terrifyingly dystopian. So, Stallion, breaking in here, neurobehavioral predictors of violence. What could this possibly have to do with your smartphone? Just wait. Last week, the Washington Post reported that the White House had been briefed on a plan to create an agency called HARPA. You know, I mean, it's going to mention it here in the article. Stand breaking in. I mean, it sounds like a combination between HARP and DARPA. Both, and when I say HARP, I mean that thing up in Alaska. You know what I'm talking about. And both of those combined just sounds... Talk about a match made in hell, and I don't mean that in the good way. Let's read on. HARPA, a healthcare counterpart to the Pentagon. I should just... I mean, like, do I have to read on? A healthcare counterpart to the Pentagon? What in the fuck's sake is the Pentagon doing in healthcare? Let's find out. I don't know. That should be terrifying enough for everybody else, but well, what the hell? We'll just keep reading. Because, I mean, otherwise all we're going to do is laugh and then cry. HARPA, a healthcare counterpart to the Pentagon's research and development arm, DARPA. Among other initiatives, this new agency would reportedly collect volunteer data from a suite of smart devices, including Apple Watches. Oh, I love my Apple Watch. Oh, don't take my Apple Watch, please. I need DARPA to... Apple Watches, Fitbits, Amazon Echoes, and Google Homes in order to identify, quote, neurobehavioral signs, end quote, of, quote, someone headed toward a violent, explosive act, end quote. The project would then use artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence. To create a sensor suite to flag mental changes that make violence more likely. I will read on. But do you get the picture already? Do you see here, like, this is basically some asshat who might actually be somewhat intelligent presented to the White House the idea that we can use this, basically this spy network that is Amazon Echoes, your Apple Watch, Fitbits, your smartphone, your laptop, go down the list. Yeah, it might as well be what we call it. It's a spy network or a surveillance network, whatever you want to call it. We can put all this together and we can know what people are thinking. I bet you didn't consider that when you said, boy, did I get in my 10,000 steps today? Yeah, you didn't. Anyway, reading on. According to the Post, the HARPA proposal, and let's be clear here. This is just a proposal. It didn't go through yet. But as the Washington Post, you'll find out later in this article, as Washington Post found out, basically anybody that this has been presented to, gave it a round of applause and said, "Oh, we are very excited about this." Of course, they're going to know whatever, or they think they're going to know what everybody's thinking. Moving on. The HARPA proposal was discussed with senior White House officials as early as June 2017, but has, quote, gained momentum, end quote, after the mass shootings in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio. The latest version of the plan, reportedly submitted to the Trump administration this month, outlined the biometric project called Safe Home, an acronym for, get this one, stopping aberrant fatal events by helping overcome mental extremes, end quote. Has anybody tried to use this AI algorithm on Trump? Because I don't think that would... use it on every politician, because they basically, every single one of them has their finger on the trigger, more or less. Is this going to work on military personnel? It better. Reading on, a source told the newspaper that every time HARPA has been discussed in the White House, quote, even up to the presidential level, it's been very well received, end quote. Man, draining that swamp. A copy of the plan obtained by the Post characterizes HARPA as pursuing, quote, breakthrough technologies with high specificity and sensitivity for early diagnosis of neuropsychiatric violence, end quote, and claims that, quote, a multimodality solution along with real-time data analytics is needed to achieve such an accurate diagnosis, end quote. That's a lot of vague buzzwords, but the general idea is clear. Collect a wealth of personal data in order to flag mental status changes in individuals and determine whether those changes can predict mass violence. It's an approach that strikes George David Annis, Deputy Director of the Forensic Psychiatry Fellowship Program at SUNY Upstate Medical University, as ridiculous. Whew. At least some fucking expert out there has a goddamn brain. Quote, the proposed data collection goes beyond absurdity when they mention the desire to collect Fitbit data, Annis told Gizmodo. Quote, I am unaware of any study linking walking too much and committing mass murder. I want to read that one again. I am unaware of any study linking walking too much and committing mass murder. As for the other technologies, what are these people expecting? Alexa, tell me the best way to kill a lot of people really quickly? Really? End quote. Less unusual is the effort to scapegoat people with mental health issues by suggesting their illness is a leading factor in these atrocities, even though that conclusion isn't supported by data. Quote, creating a watch list of citizens who most likely will never act violently based on their mental health is a very dangerous proposal with major ethical considerations, end quote. Emma Friedel, a doctoral candidate at Northeastern University specializing in mass murder. Wait, what? That's a specialty? Told Gizmodo in an email, quote, doing so to predict the unpredictable is utterly absurd, end quote. Friedel said that, quote, literally any risk factor identified for mass shooters will result in millions of false positives, end quote. Sure, stallion breaking in, it's called the U.S. military. But they're not false positives. I'm sure there's others. Anyway, adding that the most reliable risk factor is gender and that most mass murderers are male, end quote. Or quote, should we create a list of all men in the United States and keep tabs on them, end quote, she said. Quote, although it would be absurd and highly unethical, doing so would be more effective than keeping a list of persons with mental illness, end quote. I have no comment on all that, but you get her point. Annis expressed a similar sentiment. Sorry, I just got stopped for a second. I'm just imagining. You know, I just pictured like a bunch of MRAs on Twitter saying, wait. Women commit mass murders too. And what? You know, like, why even bother letting that escape from your lips? It matters if it's true, but like, that's not solving anything by saying, well, the other side does too. Oh, reading on. Annis expressed a similar sentiment. He pointed out that few mass shooters were diagnosed with mental illness beforehand, attaching an FBI fact sheet that includes data on mental illness and active shootings. Quote, many of the recent mass murders have been perpetrated by white supremacists with clear motives in this regard. Racism is not a mental illness, end quote. Reading on, the point isn't that the government should be surveilling other demographic groups instead, but rather how alarming and unfounded the push to monitor people with mental illnesses is. Quote, advocating for mental health reform in the wake of a mass shooting without explaining why is almost as much of a non sequitur as advocating for the improvement of infrastructure after such an event, end quote, Annis said. And it isn't just Republicans considering such proposals. Democratic New York Governor Andrew Cuomo responded to the Ohio and Texas mass shooting with a list of Democratic candidates for president should endorse to improve, or a list of efforts that they should endorse to improve gun safety. This included surveilling people with mental health illnesses, proposing the creation of a federal mental health database that would restrict access to guns for those on it. New York has already begun to compile such a list, which requires mental health workers to report any patient who appears likely to harm themselves or others, seemingly at any point in the future. Kudos to Gizmodo for finally being, I guess, for lack of a better term, centrist about this, saying, oh no, you think Republicans are the only ones on board with this shit? No, Democrats are too. Of course. They're politicians. They're the people with fucking, if there are people in the world with mental illnesses, and I don't mean to disrespect people that have genuine mental illnesses and problems, okay, because they are out there, they are real, and they need care. Okay, and I mean really understanding and proper empathetic care. But I'm just going to say it this way. Politicians, every single goddamned one of them, I don't care if they have an R, a D, an L, a G, or whatever next to their name, is mentally ill because they think that they can control other human beings or somehow that they know better than you, and fuck them. If there's anybody that deserves a straitjacket, it's anyone in the White House right this second. Reading on. Aside from assuming a strong link between mental illness and violence, this kind of surveillance creates mistrust in the system, forcing people with mental health issues to consider whether getting help could put them on a federal watch list. Quote, the only thing it would be likely to do is to further marginalize an already maligned minority who already deal with stigma, end quote, and further, or quoting further, and further discourage others from seeking care they might have otherwise sought out, end quote. I mean, it's an interesting point that, like, if you have some kind of, and look, mental illnesses, I mean, that is a very broad spectrum from the, not so serious to things that are very, very serious as far as your ability to function in society. If you go around making mental illness like something that's punishable, okay, and I mean, and you being consistently surveilled is certainly a punishment, right? And we know how surveillance, how a lack of privacy, the research is well in on, I mean, as to where everything else, that the reason why they're setting up this neuro, what was it called again? Let me go to the top here. The neurobehavioral network. Okay, the reason that they're setting this up, and again, they're not going to roll out. This isn't even going to cost tax dollars. Not really. This is something you have already bought and paid for. This surveillance network. You understand? But we know we have plenty of psychological research over the years on how a lack of privacy and even just the knowledge that what you're doing may not be private has a net negative effect on the human brain. Stress, among a million other things. We know that's not up to debate. Privacy is an inherently part of a healthy human being. That's it. The story's over. I mean, it kills me. This is another thing too, where like the debates happening in the tech world right now are, do we want perfect privacy, or are we willing to give up a little bit, for some degree of protection, and keeping an eye on terrorists or something like this? And it's like, wait a minute. Is a human being healthier with privacy or without? Well, they're healthier. And did we stop terrorism, quote unquote, did we stop terrorism without smartphones and all this stuff? I mean, it's just abundantly clear. We need privacy to be healthy people. A lack of privacy could fucking create mental illnesses. Are you kidding? I mean, yes, they really could. Reading on. Jonathan Metzl, director of the Center for Medicine, Health, and Society at Vanderbilt University, listed other negative consequences that could occur if such a database was disseminated, including making it more difficult to get on an airplane or get a loan. Quote, there are real-world implications if that knowledge gets out, end quote, he said. In the absence of gun reform, these political obsessions with surveillance through healthcare are a disservice to gun safety conversations and a disservice to a marginalized community. Quote, you could put a microchip in every person diagnosed with mental illness in this country, and it would still do nothing to reduce mass shootings, Metzl said, if it wasn't also accompanied by common sense gun laws. Now, that last line, I could talk about that. Common sense gun laws, I mean, this is laws. Laws don't solve shit. And microchipping everybody, I mean, and that's, yeah, it's an interesting way of phrasing it, because I remember, actually, so I was raised Jewish. But my parents converted to Christianity later on, and we became Seventh-day Adventists. Seventh-day Adventists have and they're not the only ones, there's plenty of people that do this, they have an interesting interpretation of parts of the book of Revelation where it talks about the mark of the beast. And a lot of Christians, not just Seventh-day Adventists, just Seventh-day Adventists really concentrate on the book of Revelation, maybe more so than some Christians do. So that's why I bring that up. But regardless, a lot of Christians have this belief that the mark of the beast is some kind of chip that goes in your hand, because the mark of the beast is some kind of economic power, right? Like you can't buy or sell without the mark and all this. So they think it's like some kind of microchip in your hand that allows you basically, to go around buying and selling. And because of that idea, which I think more or less started like in the 70s. In fact, actually in the 70s, they might have thought it was more tattoos than microchips, because that wasn't such an idea. But it's been around for a while. And so any time, like even when RFID chips in something as simple as your razors from Gillette or something like that, or in your clothes, in the button of your clothes, and they do exist there, folks. I mean, it's part of a marketing system, though it could also be part of a tracking system, depending whose hands they're in. You never hand a gun to somebody unless you know where they're going to point it. I would argue just don't hand anybody a gun, but okay. Continuing on, people have freaked out about these microchips, or being chipped, and there was that family in Florida, this is over a decade ago, where the parents put a tracking chip in all of their kids. Way to go, parents, you fucking assholes. So much for giving, treating kids like little human beings, which they are, and giving them actual autonomy. People have freaked out about this stuff, and they freaked out about that story, that Florida family, for a long time. They really did. But the irony is that you may not literally have a microchip in your hand, but just like I am right now, because I have one, you're holding that smartphone in your hand, or maybe you have your Apple Watch on, or something like that. That might as well be, in every way, representative, and not just representative, but literally every fear you've ever had around being chipped, around having a microchip put in you. It's the same thing. Oh, what, you can put it down? So what? How many of you do? I'm not saying I'm any better. I'm just saying, how many of you do? That's another thing Christians would say. Oh, yeah, I mean, that became like a tagline in Christianity like a decade ago. Wish people would reach for their would reach for their Bibles and not leave home as much as they do for their iPhones, right? So this has been a problem for a long time, for a while. It's the same fucking thing. But this is this neurobehavioral predictive network, whatever it's for. The mass shootings are just the excuse to implement it. If you think that this wasn't ultimately one of the ideas or one of the reasons that the government was so interested in funding a lot of this, or why DARPA would hand over certain technologies to Silicon Valley companies and all that, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what I could say that would convince you otherwise, because there's no reason not to have noticed it, at least within the past decade. This is where we're at. This is what they want to do. And they are using these excuses. What was it, Rahm Emanuel? Remember that? Remember that idiot? Worked with Obama. Rahm Emanuel, remember he said, you never let a good crisis go to waste? Well, here you go. They're not letting this crisis go to waste. They want to set up an entire network. And it's not just a matter of the technology. There becomes not just and look, the idea that AI could do this well, AI might as well be a fucking pseudoscience, you understand, okay, with a lot of this stuff. There's places where you implement that and it's very legit, and then there's times where you implement that, and look, is one of my favorite sayings, artificial intelligence is no match for natural stupidity, and that's why you're going to end up with false positives with all of this, okay? I sure as hell don't buy that, but that framework is going to now be joined with a legal framework that suddenly this metadata that gets collected about you through all of these various through the entirety of Internet of Things, because, oh yeah, what a great idea that was. Like, we haven't been warning since day one that IoT was going to be used maliciously against you in a court of law or in whatever other fashion. Well, here's the court of law. Here's the proposal for this to happen, where IoT gets used to supposedly predict what you're fucking thinking. To say nothing of the balls on these people to think that somehow, because of all this metadata, that they have any idea what's running through your fucking head. That's outrageous. But they think that this can go that way. Ultimately, I think it would end up getting used for other purposes, okay? Because I don't think that this can actually even work. Like, the concept itself is a failure, but it creates a legal framework where it is easier to threaten your everyday person or citizen, whatever the fuck that word means, okay, with the threat of real violence and the threat of real mass murder, that being from governments all around the world against the individual. That's ultimately what this is about. The technology, let's be clear here, the technology is kind of bullshit for what they're talking about, in my opinion. And I'm not the only one that holds that opinion. I have seen, and actually I reached out to a couple of people who, this is far more their space, where they said, no, this isn't going to work. Well, I imagine there's people who proposed it who probably know it doesn't work either, but it's a way to just get easier access to more data, but not only that, but to create a legal framework where this data can be more so than it already is, and it has been, right? Remember the guy, it was because of the Fitbit data, there was the rape case, and they used the Fitbit data to come up with the decision in that, okay? But more so, this data can be used as a way to lock you up or kill you. There you go. Now, I imagine a lot of you want me to talk about the gun law thing. Look, I'm an anarchist, okay? I don't want any laws. All right, laws aren't going to solve this either. This neurobehavioral predictive network isn't going to do shit. Laws are not going to do shit about these mass shootings. There are very deep-seated. The only way that basically, I'm just going to say this, and we'll wrap it up. We'll go to the next segment. The real solution to these mass shootings is not something that is easy. It's something that it might take generations to really resolve. Okay? The answers are not easy, and they are not quick. And there are no quick and easy answers. Laws aren't going to do it either. In case you think I was somehow supportive of that, I'm not. All right? These are very real tragedies with very real problems, but these problems are deep-seated, and you need to have a much bigger conversation, and certainly a bigger conversation than a tech show can have, to talk about actual solutions. Okay? Even though I do have some ideas, but that's for another time. So we'll wrap this one up. Think twice. You buy all these interconnected devices. I've been on a bit of a tear of replacing a lot of my equipment with the dumbest fucking versions of that equipment that I can find. And when I say dumb, I don't mean as in they don't work. I mean as in they don't interconnect with anything. We can still do that. You can still buy some classic equipment and other things, and I recommend we do. Okay, if you want to jump on shit like the Librem 5 and whatever else, now is your time, because you have the ultimate warning signals of what happens if you don't. So go for it. But maybe don't even go with the Librem 5. Just get away from interconnectivity as much as possible. I know that that's difficult in the world we live in right now, but as much as possible. Maybe I need to talk about those solutions at some point. Anyway, I'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech, because while I'm spending a moment here condemning smartphones, let's do it. Let's one-up that whole game in the next story. I'll be right back with more. Hey, if you have a project that needs reliable cryptocurrency data, check out blocktap.io. Blocktap.io is a universal cryptocurrency API. You can get historical prices for Bitcoin and other digital assets that you can use to build charts and do market analysis. Blockchain data is also indexed, so you can get transaction statistics, address balances, and more for Bitcoin and other networks. Blocktap.io is free for personal use, and you don't even need to create an account to access the API. To get started, try some of the example queries on the homepage at blocktap.io. Again, that's blocktap.io. blocktap.io. And we thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. Woo! Let's get back to the show.
HackSec.
We're in September now, and one of the hot stories coming out of late August was that there were websites, believe it or not, there are websites that you could visit with your iPhone that would, to use the term that the mainstream media uses, that would hack your iPhone. Woo! And track you and do who knows what else. Well, we're going to read about that. But before we do, I want you to check out a Sovryn Tech sponsor, that being Free Talk Live. I want you to go to freetalklive.com. And boy, if you want to have conversations based around what we've been talking about here, you want to get these kind of messages out, or talk about how, maybe how you got the smartphone out of your life or whatever, whatever the situation is. If you want to talk about that, freetalklive.com is the place to do it. It is an open phones call-in show. It is the number 27 talk show in the United States. How could you not want to take that opportunity? Run 7 nights a week, 3 hours a night. That blows my mind that it goes, that it does that. And it's been going for over a decade. This is your opportunity. You can get your voice out there, and also here's some very interesting subjects, in my opinion. So check it out, freetalklive.com. And I was a co-host for a couple of years on that show, and it's a great time. You can be a part of it. Go to freetalklive.com to do so, and I thank them for sponsoring Sovryn Tech. All right, so iPhones getting exploited via websites. Who are they going after? You probably wouldn't believe me if I told you. But the answer is, according to TechCrunch, and this is because this was found out a little bit after the initial announcement of these hacks, which were the exploit was discovered actually by Project Zero, which is Google's little, that's their crack, like NSA-esque Tau team, that keeps an eye on all this. They let Apple know. Apple fixed this issue in iOS version 12.1.4. I would assume this will continue to be fixed when version 13 is coming out very soon, right? But who are they targeting with these attacks? And this was, well, anyway, tell you what. Let's read the story. Let's read some of the story here, and we'll break into it. A number of malicious websites use, this is from TechCrunch, link is in the show notes if you want to check it out for more, because there's a lot of links that lead to other data about this. A number of malicious websites used to hack into iPhones over a 2-year period were targeting Uyghur Muslims, TechCrunch has learned. Sources familiar with the matter said the websites were part of a state-backed attack, likely China, designed to target the Uyghur community in the country's, I don't know how to pronounce this one, Xinjiang state. It's part of the latest effort by the Chinese government to crack down on the minority Muslim community in recent history. In the past year, Beijing has detained more than 1 million Uyghurs in internment camps, according to a United Nations Human Rights Committee. Google security researchers found and recently disclosed the malicious websites this week, but until now it wasn't known who they were targeting. The websites were part of a campaign to target the religious group by infecting an iPhone with malicious code simply by visiting a booby-trapped webpage. In gaining unfettered access to the iPhone software, an attacker could read a victim's messages, passwords, and track their location in near real time. Apple fixed the vulnerabilities in February in iOS version 12.1.4, days after Google privately disclosed the flaws. News of the hacking campaign was first disclosed by this week. So this was patched months ago, known about months ago. Understand, though, that this has been an exploit that's been, at the very least, in use, but up until now has existed since the beginning, more probably since the beginning of iOS. So for years, at the very least, it's been in use for the past 2 years, but it's been around probably since the early days of iOS. Reading on, these websites had, quote, thousands of visitors, end quote, per week, for at least 2 years, Google said. After we published, Forbes confirmed our reporting and said the same websites targeting iPhones were also used to target Android and Windows users. That suggests the campaign targeting Uyghurs was far broader in scope than Google initially disclosed. Victims were tricked into opening a link, which when opened would load one of the malicious websites used to infect the victim. It's a common tactic to target phone owners with spyware. One of the sources told TechCrunch that the websites also infected non-Uyghurs who inadvertently accessed these domains because they were indexed in Google search, prompting the FBI to alert Google to ask for the site to be removed from its index to prevent infections. A Google spokesperson would not comment beyond the public research. An FBI spokesperson said they could neither confirm nor deny any investigation and did not comment further. The next paragraph is pretty important, but we have a lot to say about this. Google faced some criticism following its bombshell report for not releasing the websites used in the attacks. The researchers said the attacks were, quote, indiscriminate watering hole attacks with no target discrimination, end quote, noting that anyone visiting the site would have their iPhone hacked. But the company would not say who was behind the attacks. Apple did not comment, blah, blah, blah. So the claim is that it was the Chinese government behind these attacks, and there is certainly, I mean, if you know the history behind the Uyghur Muslims in China, and the push and pull between them and the Chinese government, I mean, that's a very well documented bit of very ugly business, quite frankly. I mean, it's crazy. So would they go this far? Sure, because I think they feel that the Muslim community in China has been a real thorn in their side. And well, anyway, we're not going to get into all of that. The important context here is that this kind of attack, it affects iOS, and I think there is the very misleading idea out there that iOS is somehow this really great secure platform. Now, as I have said, and other security researchers have said over the years, out of the box, iOS is arguably the most secure operating system on the planet. Out of the box. Go beyond what you just open up out of a box and turn on. the answer changes dramatically. And I would argue that actually a good hardened Android implementation, or, something like the other custom ROMs that we mentioned earlier in the show, would be a far better option and far more secure option than iOS. But you got to go that distance, okay, to get to that. But it's important to note that, iOS is not this secure. I mean, it has a secure enclave, but it's not this secure enclave in the abstract sense. Okay, but also keep in mind, this was just as much affecting Android and Windows as anything else. Would this infect Tails? Probably not, because when you're using the Tor browser, you have no script running. You're killing half the JavaScript that would even probably be able to transmit, or that would be used to transmit, the spyware. I mean, it just points at, again, where you want to be using a platform where you have a lot more control around this stuff. And mobile phones will never, well, I shouldn't say never, because I'm sure the Librem 5 is in that direction, but the two-party system of smartphones that we have right now do not give you the level of control that you need to probably put a stop to this sort of thing. And understand, these sites, I mean, anybody could have gone to them, and it happened. And it was very clear, they basically own your ass once you visit one of these sites. Near real-time tracking location, you're reading messages, passwords, they got you. I mean, it also points out the importance of, doing two-factor authentication, right? And I would argue using a YubiKey for that, using something with a one-time PIN that's not SMS, because again, they can read your messages. You want something that's a cycling one-time PIN, okay? Like, basically like something you'd get if you, were using, if you want to use Google Authenticator, or if you're using Microsoft Authenticator, or if you're using what I think is the best one, which is using YubiKey with the Yubico Authenticator. That way it's a separate device entirely. I mean, it's a no-brainer for that's really the way to go. But yeah, I mean, understand this too. They know these, and if again, we can't say for certain, if it's the Chinese government that was taking advantage of this exploit, mobile phones are the hot target. Your ThinkPad is not. Okay, that's something I want you to keep in mind. They're so hot. Everybody's looking. I mean, the amount of money that's now, granted, the industry is kind of speaking in this, where like what Apple, I don't know, they raised their bug bounty program to like $1 million a bug or something like that. It's some crazy amount of money. But there's whole state backed, at the very least, companies, organizations out there that'll spend millions for 0 days on iOS, Android, and all that. I mean, we know these. We've talked about these many times over the years on the show, but they're very real, okay? And it's great that Apple and Google and whoever else are trying to, trying to match, I guess what more malicious parties are willing to give you to get these, to take advantage of these bugs. But damn it, I mean, one of the smartest things you can do is try and mitigate this really, really hot target of a platform, that being your smartphone. Now, granted, it said Windows as well. Well, I mean, no shit, get off of Windows. I mean, that's something we've been recommending forever. Or at the very least, put Windows in its place, make it a gaming PC and don't log into it. Don't use login info or any of that horse shit on it. Just have it be that. And then, you have your other computers that or a laptop or something that does whatever other business. So, yeah, I mean, if you needed more proof of, this can happen to anything, and it does. Again, this could really work on just about any platform. Linux might have been a little more hardened against the actual exploit itself, and that wouldn't work there. But regardless, it could have happened anywhere, and this is just something to consider. I mean, even think broader of the ramifications of this on the internet in general, okay, and internet interconnected systems in general, that it's as simple as going to a website. That simple. So anyway, we'll be right back with some more Sovryn Tech. We got plenty more to get into, and I'll be back with more. In 2014, he ran from Miami to San Francisco, raising awareness for Bitcoin and the homeless epidemic in America, and now he's doing it again. Blockchain evangelist and advocate for homeless rights Jason King is running across North America right now, from Miami to Santa Monica, right now. 5 years later, his commitment to promoting blockchain technology and fighting the homeless epidemic in America is stronger than ever. And you can help Jason now by going to blockchainacrossamerica.com. While you're there, donate to Satoshi Forest Sanctuary Incorporated to help the homeless, along with all kinds of other ways you can help. Get involved today. blockchainacrossamerica.com. That's blockchainacrossamerica.com.
This week in blockchain.
You know, during the climax, I was going to talk about, so Ellen and I, we went and saw, they did a, 30th anniversary, re-release of The Matrix, one night only, in AMC theaters. And we ended up catching that, had a great time. And we recently, after seeing that, we're like, well, shit, we got to watch everything else again, and we know about, I talked about this, I think it was the last episode of Sovryn Tech, that you have The Matrix 4. We know that that's going to be a thing. And we rewatched the last two films, that being Reloaded and Revolutions. I was going to talk about that because, boy, I think there's things to say about those two movies, especially rewatching them now and rewatching them back to back. I have the ultimate Blu-ray collection of them, whatever. But I'll save that. And I actually had another movie I wanted to review, which was Nude on the Moon from 1961. Fuck, there's some good shit. We'll save all that for the climax, maybe in the next episode. We'll see. But we ended up in a conversation here that had the show would have the show run well into overtime if I got into all that. So what we're going to do is I'm going to skip. We're going to go, we got it. We have a blockchain segment that plays into this theme of this episode that everything's fucking bullshit. Okay? And basically what happened is, and this really caught my eye. I mean, I was, as soon as I heard about this, and understand that I pay attention to, so one of the areas, like we were saying earlier, one of the areas where I think good things are genuinely happening in the tech world is really in Bitcoin, in the Bitcoin space. And I'm specifically saying Bitcoin, but you get my point, okay? But really, in the Bitcoin space, it's where things just keeps on moving. It might be slow, there's ups and downs, but it just keeps on going. And there was, I catch the news cycle from, Cointelegraph and all these other sites and everything. And there was a bunch of stories that started going around. And actually one of them was from Forbes, okay, that NASA, now I think Forbes might have been the only one that was actually saying NASA, but that NASA was developing a cryptocurrency. And and I caught this headline. I'm like, wait, what? I mean, can they even do that? I mean, yeah, do they have the technical prowess? Well, sure. Okay. But I mean, literally, could they, would they be legally allowed to develop a cryptocurrency, to develop money? Without the SEC. Anyways, it was the craziest little thing. And that immediately set off red flags. I'm like, there's no way that that's happening. But this was a story, fully featured, top of the page, whole thing in Forbes. Is that NASA was creating cryptocurrency. Well, you can dig a little deeper into this story. Again, other sites were talking about it as well, but they were saying it was actually the NSA. Now, that's where things become a little more believable. Of course, I have said for many years, and I'm not the only one that says this, but I'm certainly one of the proponents that does. One of the reasons that I have confidence in Bitcoin existing is because one of the primary users of Bitcoin, and I'm not saying I like this, I don't, but they are, one of the primary users of Bitcoin is the U.S. government, and particularly, I would dare say, the NSA, CIA, and whatever other alphabet soup organization, because they love to launder money and just toss it around or whatever, and Bitcoin's, a great way to do that. Of course, cash is another way to do that as well. It's not like that's something unique to Bitcoin, but I'm sure they enjoy some of the unique features of Bitcoin that also makes it a great tool for the individual against oppression that exists in this worldwide spread. So for the NSA to create a cryptocurrency, oh, well, sure. I can imagine that they would. That wouldn't really surprise me at all. In fact, we know that DARPA, which is, hop, skip, and a jump away from any other alphabet soup organization in the U.S. government. They have been developing a cryptocurrency for some time now. We reported on it. We talked about it on Sovryn Tech. So what all this really came from was a tweet by a journalist. I think he's a journalist. His name's William Turton. And his tweet was, and this is, boy, the fucking power of Twitter, which is why I have to have that conversation in an upcoming episode of this show. And I think it might surprise you. It might not be what you think. But anyway, William Turton, here's the tweet. I'll read it. And the tweet is from September 4th, 2019 at 4:54 p.m. Ann Neuberger, director of NSA's new cybersecurity directorate, says that the agency will propose hardware and software standards again. Also notes agency is working to build quantum resistance crypto. Okay. Or quantum resistant crypto. Now, this says so much. Okay. I use the term, I'll admit it, I do use the term crypto often enough, especially like on this show and also when I'm talking to clients, but it's contextual. If I'm in the right crowd, and Sovryn Tech is very much the right crowd, I will often I will use the word crypto to mean cryptocurrency. Outside of those contextual areas, I know that crypto doesn't mean cryptocurrency, it means cryptography. And it's pretty clear, especially when you say quantum resistant crypto, that's what William Turton is talking about. Okay, I mean, because, yeah, I know that people are talking about, quantum computers, eliminate the encryption on the blockchain and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's been stuff that's been talked about on this show and has been getting talked about in the broader community, Bitcoin community and blockchain community for years. Not anything new. But if you're a security researcher, if you're somebody worth your salt, when you hear quantum resistant crypto, nobody's talking about cryptocurrency in that context. I mean, it's just not. Okay. And certainly the NSA isn't talking about that either, because that would be them basically, this would be Ann Neuberger legitimizing openly cryptocurrency. Okay. I mean, not to say that governments haven't done something. I mean, and I like to be very careful with that word legitimate and legitimize. But, no, like they're not going to do that, even though I know some governments have made strides to, they put out olive branches to blockchain tech in various ways, including cryptocurrencies. But regardless, that the NSA is not doing that, because that would have been them backing some kind of cryptocurrency somehow, or even the concept of cryptocurrency, which the U.S. government isn't even really doing yet. So that just wouldn't have made any sense whatsoever. So for people to read this, okay, and somehow think that William Turton was talking about cryptocurrencies, I mean, this is a major problem. That journalists are this asinine, and understand that it's not just like journalists. I mean, the Forbes thing, like that's on a whole other fucking level, because that was the guy's name was Islam or something like that. But on a whole other level, he didn't even read. Did he even take time to read the tweet? Because it very clearly said NSA. I just read the tweet to you. He interpreted it as NASA. Now, if it was just a flub like that and just Forbes did it, okay, whatever. That wouldn't be, okay, that happens. I guess that kind of mistake can occur, even though you would certainly expect a whole fucking better from Forbes. Granted, a lot of these, especially more financial, even though Forbes is a very broad journalistic institution now, it's not just finance. But, you'd say, okay, well, the finance guys, they fucked up. They don't really understand blockchain and Bitcoin anyway. Okay, like not a surprise. But oh no. Cointelegraph got in the game. CoinDesk was a little on the fence over the matter, but finance magnates, cryptonomists, I mean, there were plenty of journalists within the Bitcoin and blockchain space who were all regurgitating this, what frankly is non-news. I mean, like, Of course the NSA is working on quantum resistant crypto. They are now working on a cryptocurrency, but they just regurgitated this whole thing. And these are, you expect, like Cointelegraph, in a lot of people's minds, okay, especially in the blockchain community, in a lot of people's minds, Cointelegraph and CoinDesk are like the Wall Street Journal and New York Times of blockchain news. That's the perception, I think, for a lot of people. Cointelegraph is not what it once was, not even close, and even what it once was, well, whatever. But you would expect, I think a lot of people expect from these organizations, okay, from these outlets, I should say, from these outlets, they expect the people there to, well, A, I think they expect them to do some due diligence. B, I think they expect them to be a little more fucking knowledgeable about, blockchain matters, right? But they're way off. And they wrote whole stories about this. It's crazy. The people, one of the messages that I can give you here, out of this, to take away from this. First off, of course, NASA's not developing a cryptocurrency. Look, as much as I would love, and there will be, and I know other people have proposed it, I think even Elon Musk might have been talking about it, as much as there probably will, or as much as, it's not probably, as much as there will be cryptocurrency in space, okay, in the future, NASA's not working on that. That's way above anything that they would really do. Okay, it's just that's outlandish. In fact, NASA has basically a open secret of a mission of money not being. It is. You can't help it. The NASA budget is a very real concern by people at NASA. But like they almost have they have this quiet. Understand. My dad, worked with the Voyager program and everything. They have this very like quiet agreement that we don't make it about the money. They want it to just seem like this really. Really like we do science, we go into space, we're the heroes, we're the right stuff. They just want that attitude. So if NASA was doing a cryptocurrency, that would just completely fuck with their image. So that's strike one. Against that whole goddamn notion. So, but that's not what's happening. But also the NSA, right from the tweet, it's abundantly clear. There's a problem in that, how much can you say in 240 characters and brevity can be an issue. But any security researcher, any blockchain person should have read that and known that, no, they're not talking about crypto. William Turton's not talking about cryptocurrency at all. It was so weird. And then, but these stories start going out there and everything. Again, like I said, yes, there are parts of the U.S. government. There is, DARPA is working on a cryptocurrency. I'm sure that that's a part of the program. I'm not saying that it's not. But they're not going to do that shit, terribly openly, even if they were. And the point I want to bring to you, don't trust these fucking outlets. In general, okay, this is a whole segment that I do every week, or just about every week on this show, where we talk about blockchain news. Do you know what we don't talk about? We don't talk about the Bitcoin price. We don't talk about the price of other cryptos. I might mention it. There might be an offhand comment, but in general, or like maybe some prediction from Tim Draper, I've covered that. But that's like a once a year, if even that I bother to ever talk about the price of this stuff. Reason being, or the point that I'm getting at here, okay, is that there are great projects happening, with Lightning Network and all that, things happening around Bitcoin that are really exciting, or if, some great like nonprofit organization or some organization or somebody's implementing Bitcoin or whatever. What did I read in Germany now? I think you can go to Burger King and buy Bitcoin. Talk about the impossible. Hell, they have the Impossible Burger. Now they're taking the impossible money for it. Impossible Burger's a vegetarian burger. Or a vegan burger. I love them. I think they're fucking great as a vegetarian myself. Big fan. But there's things to talk about as far as that goes. But like this constantly watching the price and all this, look, you either believe in the technology or you don't. What makes Bitcoin particularly great and what makes it so unique is that it is, in my opinion, and folks can go back years when I had my "Is Bitcoin more real than gold" talk, okay? Bitcoin is the first money that genuinely has, that has an intrinsic value, because it is the money network and transmitter just as much as it is the money. And that's incredibly unique. Or it's not unique anymore, but that's incredibly new, I should say. I think that's very, very new. And so ultimately, the dollar value just doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter at all. Okay. And so all these stories, like the reporting cycle around blockchain and even just Bitcoin is asinine. It's pointless. Like, just hold, just hodl and go, just hold on to it, use it when you need to, and do your thing. There should be no other message going out there. If there's interesting projects that maybe, can help make Bitcoin more anonymous, okay, let's talk about those, and these other things. But like the dollar value and all this other crap going on around, none of it fucking, or even if governments, if NASA was developing a cryptocurrency, or if, the NSA was working on a cryptocurrency, again, they meant quantum resistant cryptography. None of that's ultimately important, because it doesn't change the fact that the Bitcoin train rolls on. Okay. And that it is, again, it's practically indestructible, okay? Because it is the network and the money at the same time, right? That's the beauty of it. That's the true beauty of it. So, why people follow all, I know why I follow it, and it's because I have clients who, they pretend that it somehow matters, but it's all a fucking joke. It doesn't, none of this shit matters. You're either strengthening the network or you're not. And if you're not, who gives a rat's ass about you? I don't. Not really. Why was this even a story? Why was this even a story? So the takeaway, and the thing I'm going to leave you with on this week's Sovryn Tech, is, there's some news to talk about around Bitcoin and some blockchain things that are, that might be happening outside of it that maybe aren't a cryptocurrency, that are very interesting, because it's a brilliant idea, of course. But don't bother. Don't pay attention to these fucking, news sources. And not for most of it. And sure as fuck, don't be paying attention to them for the value, or this person's developing this or that. So many, these altcoins are falling apart at the seams. So just don't bother. Okay. I'll keep doing, This Week in Blockchain, and there's, there will be something interesting to talk about. And there's plenty of new developments happening around Bitcoin that are very exciting. I don't care about the value. You shouldn't care about the value. Just hold on to it, rock and roll, ride. And when the time is right, then everybody's sitting pretty. Or, maybe everybody, because who knows what kind of infrastructure, physical infrastructure and meat space, ends up getting created around the fact that there are a lot of people who did very, very well off of a brilliant new form of money that changed the world. So anyway, don't worry, NASA's not on that. They have no part of it, though. I'd love to see some Bitcoin funded space programs. I am totally on board with that action. Let's do it. But anyway, that's it for this week's Sovryn Tech. We'll wrap this baby up. And again, you're going to have a double header. So within a pretty short order, probably the next day after this gets released, you'll end up with the second Sovryn Tech. Please make sure to frequent all of our sponsors on this show. Okay, they are supporting this kind of independent voice, and nobody's saying what the Golden Stallion's saying right now. So if you want to help out with that, that's a great way to do it. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter. As insane as that platform is, you can follow me on there at Sovryn Tech. I'm not going anywhere, don't worry. And I will see all of you on the other side.
You just experienced Sovryn Tech. Go to sovryntech.com, that's SOVRYN tech.com, and connect with us there. Find links from today's show and catch our podcast feed. Sovryn Tech is copy heart. Copying art is an act of love, and love is not subject to law. So please share the show however you like. Welcome to the evolution.